And Harold, the biggest question of all, foreign policy, North Korea. We should be talking about North
absent
Korea.
this weekend.
We should be talking about North Korea every day. There is a coming war, most likely. Richard Haass, I think you'd agree. It is more likely than not that there is a conflict, possibly a full-blown war with an emerging nuclear power.
The magnitude of the distraction can't be overstated. Last weekend, Tillerson was on just about every Sunday show defending the fact that he had not been castrated and making clear that we would continue negotiating right up until the first bomb drop, which was an amazing thing. One point on Sanders, because I want to hear Richard. President Trump, then candidate Trump, if you recall, he trashed generals throughout the campaign. He questioned them over and over again, and matter of fact said at several instances that he was smarter than all the generals.
He knew more about it than them. Yeah.
Right, so I mean, I just think she needs to go back and understand that, and I'm glad Chip Reed questioned with the aggressiveness that he did, but I think the point on North Korea is far more important.
So Richard, on North Korea, just like to hear you respond, but I'm wondering who's the lead player on what happens next with North Korea from our perspective? Is it the president?
Well, as in all these cases, it's the president and his senior lieutenants. But last Friday we were focused in on what the two former presidents said and what General Kelly was saying. I actually thought history will look back on what H.R. McMaster was saying Thursday that wasn't really reported Friday. That was big news. He basically said we are not going to accept and deter on North Korea with nuclear weapons and missiles. And other than denuclearization, which I would argue is not going to happen.
They're not going to do that.
We're not interested in arms control.
So what is the impact of that when he says basically we're not going to engage in containment of this threat? We're just not going to accept it. Does that move us a step closer to war?
Absolutely, because I don't think there's any way that sanctions can kick in with whatever desired effects soon enough to get in the way of the timeline of North Korea's military advance. So I listened to the National Security Advisor, and I basically said he is setting us in a direction. This is kind of out there. We often ignore what's most obvious. I actually thought that what happened the other day moved us considerably closer to a war against North Korea.
This is what General McMaster said on Thursday, and then we'll get you in, Steve. Go ahead.
We're not out of time, but we are running out of time. We're running out of time. And so this is a problem set that we have to take on with a great sense of urgency. The president's been extremely clear on his perspective on North Korea. He is not going to accept this regime threatening the United States with a nuclear weapon. He just won't accept it. So there are those who have said, well, what about accept and deter? Well, accept and deter is unacceptable. And so this puts us in a situation where we are in a race to resolve this short of military action.
Steve?
Richard, look, I can't disagree with you, obviously. The threat of war is real, but it seems to me war there, it's just unimaginable, right? There are 250,000 Americans in South Korea. There are 20 million people in Seoul, 60 kilometers or something like that from the DMZ. It can't possibly go well. It can't possibly end well. It has to be it has to make Vietnam look like a pipsqueak compared to what would happen in the Korean Peninsula if we actually did something like that.
It would be horrific. It's not unimaginable. And I could see it either happening out of design, which is what was hinted at the other day, or out of accident. We've got B-1 bombers flying close to North Korea. We've got ships in the area. North Korea continues to shoot missiles. Any one of those scenarios could lead to action and reaction, and no one here could sit around this table and say that Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, that given everything they've said, that they could somehow manage this. You wrote the other day about JFK and the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is about as far from that kind of management of a delicate situation as you could imagine.
Sometimes you have to step back when you look at these issues, and it gets too cluttered, and you just have to look at the players. And you have to figure out what they're going to do. I believe if you step back and take a look from a distance at Donald Trump, this is a guy who has already told himself and every general around him, I will not be the person that allows North Korea to develop technology to send a nuclear weapon to the West Coast. And I think unlike other presidents, he is not limited by the fears that limited JFK or even Ronald Reagan. And by the way, when I say fears, don't flinch. I mean you have reason to be scared of a war that could wipe out 500,000 people.
No, I
in
just
a
think he
couple of
wants to
weeks.
use nukes. That's what I think he feels.
Well,
I
no.
totally disagree. I think that he's
You totally
a little.
disagree with what?
We've heard him over the past year.
Right,
he's excited about the
The
concept.
U.S. war plans don't require the use of nuclear.
You didn't.
I know.
You didn't hear me, Mika.
I heard you.
No, you
but
didn't. No, I said he is not chained by the same fears
Right.
that chained JFK and Reagan, a fear of nuclear weapons, a fear of war, and unfortunately, I think we have to be on guard after that. Since he is so contemptuous of the Constitution that if a war does begin, you have to be very careful about what steps he takes at home domestically if he does start that war. Anyway.
Totally agree with that. Still ahead on Morning Joe, Senator McCain says it was wrong that to get out of serving in Vietnam, quote, the highest income level found a doctor that would say they had a bone spur. It must have been a coincidence that Donald Trump received 5 deferments from the draft during the Vietnam War because he had bone spurs. Steve Bannon's roadshow takes another ugly turn with an audience member calling to hang Senator John McCain. And hear how Mitch McConnell is responding to Bannon's push to end the Republican establishment. You are watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.